This conference will now be recorded.
Fine. So in the last session, what we did, we assigned roles to user, GL roles to user. These are the 5 serial roles we have for general ledger application. After that, for those roles with the combination of user, we associated primary ledger. We submitted LDAP. We opened the GL periods. Just for testing, we passed one journal and we posted. So everything went fine. So in today's session, we'll see the enterprise, how the enterprise is available within the instance, which is predefined by Oracle. Just by default, whenever you go to the first instance, for each instance you can have only one enterprise. So within that enterprise, you can have the default definition. Okay, default definition you can have. We'll see that. Fine. So in today's session, we'll see enterprise, which is predefined. We don't need to do anything. It's really it talks about HCM, human capital management information only, employee and payroll related. So once we're done with that, what we'll do is we'll go on to create location for business unit. We'll create the location for business unit, then we'll create business unit. See, when you talk about this enterprise structure, what we discussed, so enterprise division, primary ledger, legal entity, business target. We'll create enterprise. We don't need to create that. So for one instance, only one. That CD definition is available. The same will use. Division is not mandatory. Ideally, we don't use it, but for our understanding purpose, I'll take you to that page and I'll show you. But now it's not required. So apart from that, primary ledger is ready, legal entity ready. We can create the business unit. After completing that, after few other setups, we'll go and create the inventory organization also. That's how our own enterprise structure will be ready in this environment. Okay, we'll see. Just let me take these points here. Fine. So enterprise, we'll look at enterprise, we'll create location for a business unit. After that, we'll create the business unit. So we know how to create the operating unit in EBS. This is almost similar to that. We'll create the business unit. But when we create the business unit, there's a slight difference. We'll talk on that. After creating the business unit, we have to assign business unit business functions. What is the meaning of business unit business functions? We'll discuss and do it. But now just I'm giving list of setups which need to be performed in the sequence. So once we're done with that, we can plan to create employee user. Okay, to create the employee user, we need business unit and legal entity, right? So we can go and create. So we'll go and create, say, fine. Okay, let me write here. So create employee user. When you create employee user, we have to select legal entity. That already we discussed. As a part of employee user definition, we have to select legal entity. When you select legal entity, system will verify this legal entity is associated with the which payroll process, which country payroll. Okay, which country payroll process. The country payroll definition can be defined in the system with the concept called as legislative data group. Sorry. Legislative data group. LDZ we call. For each country, you have to create one LDZ, which will address about the country payroll for the employees. Legislative data group. Legislative data groups for country payrolls. Each country we have to maintain one separate LDZ. When you create the employee user, we have to select the legal entity. When you select the legal entity, the employee user definition will verify the legal entity is associated with which LDZ it will verify. The reason is, say you are creating the user called as employee user called as ABC. You are associating legal entity with ABC user. But for this ABC user, payroll should be run with which LDZ that has to be connected. That is the reason for this ABC user, when you select this legal entity is associated with which legislative data group system will verify. If legislative data group is not associated with the legal entity, system won't allow us to create the employee user with the specific legal entity, which legal entity is not connected with the legislative data group. That means we have to create the legislative data group. The legislative data group we have to associate with the legal entity. Only that legal entity you have to assign to your employee user. Directly if you are going to select legal entity, it won't work. Any questions on this point, please?
For location,
Sorry?
for create location, we have already created the location for the primary ledger, right? Can we use the same?
We created for primary ledger.
Right.
We created for legal entity.
Or legal entity.
Okay, legal entity.
Yes.
See, legal entity location, your registration address, your business unit address can be totally different, right? You can have n number of business units in different location. With n number of
Right.
locations, you don't go for registration. And one more point, that registration, that is a legal address. The name itself legal address, right?
Yes.
Okay, that we won't use for business unit. Separately we created the location which you create for business units inventories totally different from legal address definition.
I cannot reuse the same address.
Sorry?
I cannot reuse it. Maybe they are same.
No, you cannot use it. In EBS you can do that. In EBS whatever you create, everything is the same, like the same place, location. That, but here we have a separate task to define it. Okay, it's a separate definition.
Okay.
Fine, that is for only legal entity. Any questions here to understand this point, please? So when you create the employee user, say for example ABC employee user, we have to associate legal entity. When you associate, system will verify that legal entity is associated with the country specific payroll, nothing but legislative data group. If it is not associated, the legal entity is not valid for employee user definition. So that is the reason what we are going to do is, first we'll create legislative data group. Create legislative data group. It's a very simple definition. If you are going to, along with SCM, if you are going to implement HCM by HCM consultant, you are going to implement SCM, HCM, finance. In that case, this legislative data group, mapping legislative data group with the legal entity will be done by HCM consultant, human capital management consultant. We don't need to do it. Since we are doing alone all these, the dependencies also we are taking care of, which will become good information for us. Okay, fine. We have to create legislative data group. Anyway, it's a very simple task. After that, what we have to do? We have to associate legislative data group with legal entity. Say assign legislative data group, or simply called as LDZ. Okay, assign LDZ to legal entity. Fine. So after that, we'll create the employee user, then everything goes fine. After creating the employee user, what we can do is we can forget about the current user which we are using. We'll assign all the roles to this employee user. Assign roles to employee user. We'll continue with this employee user to do the further configuration also. So far, what are the roles we assign to the current user? Go ERP tree. That is the current user we are using. So we'll switch to completely employee user. What are the roles we assign to the current user? All the roles will assign to that employee user. So since user is employee user will have which additional privileges compared to employee implementation user? Anyone? We discussed already. Which
Business
additional
transactions.
Purchasing.
Yeah, document creation, right? Supplier definition. These are the additional privileges which can be performed by only employee user, not by implementation user. So for that reason, we'll completely switch to employee user. Since all the required definitions are going to be ready, we can forget about implementation user. From now, we'll be working on employee user only. So we'll assign roles to employee user and we'll provide data access. For user, for application implementation consultant, IT security manager, employee, for these roles we no need to provide any data access, right? Just those are job roles we have to assign to the user. The other roles, GL related roles, whatever we are going to assign, for that we have to assign the primary ledger, the same what we did in yesterday, the same we'll do for this user also. Reason, so we'll be working on P2P O2C. We have to connect to GL to test the accounting entries are getting transferred to GL or not. We have to look after all those things. That is the reason we require GL access also. For that reason, what we did in yesterday, the roles whatever we assign, the same roles will assign to the current user also. After that, we'll run LDAP job. If time permits, we can discuss few more points and we'll proceed. Okay. For now, we'll just go with these points. Okay, first we'll look at enterprise. In every instance, every fresh instance, we can see predefined the seeded definition from Oracle. You don't need to create it. Hardly you may change the name if you want to change, but rest of controls and defaults can be managed by HCM consultant. If you are going to implement HCM also, HCM consultant will look after all those as per the HCM solution. They'll be managing all the definitions. We'll see that. Just go to instance.
Sorry, Lakshman, is this session is getting recording or not?
Recording.
Yeah, every day I used to see one red button in right side, but today it's not appearing.
I'm not sure why you are not able to see. I'm recording
Okay.
every day. Recording, I'm doing today also.
Thank you very much.
I'm doing. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for that information. I'm not sure why you are not able to see that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just recording. Yeah. Fine.
Now, Lakshman, if the client does not have HCM, we got Workday, we still need to perform this LDGP, right? As a functional consultant.
Yeah, mandatory. Even it's client is not going to use HCM, we require employee user, right? That is the reason we have to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Fine. That's what the shared HR. Shared HR is always accessible for any area of application implementation. That is the reason we'll be able to do it. Fine, done. So now we'll go to enterprise, how it looks like, how the definition is available. Okay. So go to setup and maintenance. And to go to the task, you can go to your project or else directly from the search also you can do it. From the project you can find the task or you can directly go to search page. Okay, we discussed few tasks you cannot perform this search page where scope selection is required, right? That already we have seen. But for this, no scope selection is required. Directly you can find the task from here. So you can say enterprise. Search for enterprise. We got many tasks here. Go to define enterprise. Within that you can find the task called as manage enterprise HCM information. See here, when you talk about enterprise, what they're addressing within the name, HCM information. This is for HCM purpose only, but since it is a part of enterprise structure, we are talking about it. Even in case of EBS also, when you talk about business group, that is for HRMS primarily, right? When you set business group, all the information what you set. So employee number generation, how it should happen, applicant number generation, contingent worker number generation, and job flex field, grade flex field, position flex field, competence, costing. Okay, all these flex fields and legislative country, legislation name, country name, all the information we set which are related to HCM, HRMS only. The similar way here also it's equal. So we'll go and see that. This is actual task name. Manage enterprise HCM information. You may make a note when you are practicing, you can use the same task. Okay, task name is manage enterprise HCM information. Enterprise talks about only HCM related information. Just click on the task. For one instance you can have only one enterprise instance. You can call as a pod also, that already we discussed. So since this is a Vision instance, they just named as a Vision Corporation. In fresh instance, you can see this name as default enterprise. The name you can see as a default enterprise. So when you see this as a default enterprise, optionally you may change the name. What you could do is go to edit. Okay, if you say delete record, all this information will be refreshed. Again you can enter, or else you can go with update or correct. We know update or correct, two are different functions. Date effective tracking features within the EBS, the same they take in the Fusion also. But being a same consultant, we don't need to worry about all those. So simply you can click on update. What is the reason you are going to update? System is asking, no reason, say okay. Just to understand, we are going to do it. That's all. Go to edit, say update, say okay. Now here you can change to ERP3, you may write as a corporation. This is how you can update your client name here. Okay, for the client you may implement, may not implement HCM, but just you can write the name as a part of enterprise definition. So rest all, if you look at all this information, workday information related to employees, standard working hours, 40, frequency, weekly, and how the employee number need to be generated, worker number generation, employment model, 2-tier or 3-tier. So all this information. Okay, so these all are related to HCM related payroll and HCM HR related features and other areas of application of HCM also. Okay, so all these information, people group, flex field structure, okay, salary level, all these whatever you see here, all related to HRMS, HCM, human capital management, manager, department, jobs, location, grade. Okay, grade, all these details, anything you see here related to HCM, we no need to do anything with this. Just for our understanding, we are navigating. Okay, just we are changing the name with our client name. That's all. So here no, we are not going to do anything. This everything will be managed by based on the solution HCM consultant. That's all. Okay, just for information purpose we navigated here. That's all. Say submit. So whatever you see as a default, you may change the name. You can use that same. Otherwise, even if you don't use the name, there won't be an issue with that. Okay, say submit and click on done. So this is the enterprise which we discussed. Okay, now we'll go and create the location for business unit. Before we go and create the business unit, we'll create the location for the business unit. Locations and all you can search and find from here, or else you can do from the project. From anywhere we can do it, or else let's do everything from our project only instead of doing from outside of our project. So go to implementation project. Okay, search for the location. Task name is manage locations, or else you can search for the term called as locations. You can find the task. So click on location. That is available from financials as well as procurement path. Let's prefer to go with procurement. Click on manage locations. Just click on go to task icon. So here we can create the location. Just click on create. Just click on create. Notice one point, when you are creating the location, here there is location set. A location set system is taking as a common set. Just notice this point, don't try to understand because we are not going to discuss now. Once we get into the purchasing configuration, I'll explain. Okay, there is this and there are many places you can see this term called as set. Everything is same. We'll discuss on that. Okay, this in this stage we no need to discuss about it, not at all required. It won't stop you from understanding. There is best example we can go with this to understand. But just notice we are trying to create the location creation page. We have one field called as location set. Thus for that field the value which system is taking is common set. Remember this is enough. When we will be creating our own definitions, why it is required, how it will be useful, why Oracle given, everything we'll discuss. Now our target is location creation. Let's create location. I'm giving the name as ERP tree US BU location. ERP tree US BU location. Since code I am writing like this. So it's a country, you can write the address line 1. I'll write the same ERP3 address and select zip code. It will default city, state, county based on the geography information which is available. So all the zip codes, any one of the zip code you can choose. Okay, done. So we are creating the location for business unit. When you create location for inventory, we'll talk on few other points. Okay, this ship to and all these points we'll talk on that. But now not required. Just we are creating location for business unit. Okay, done. So we just given the name and we given the code and we given the this mandatory field and we selected these details. That's all done. So notice this. Remember this point. We'll be working on it. Say submit. Yes. So we created location. Then what is the next task? We have to create the business unit. Okay, we'll go and create the business unit. From how to create the operating unit in EBS? Anyone? The simple definition how we do in EBS?
In the organization only you can see it as operating unit.
In the organization window, we'll give the name for operating unit. Then what else we do?
You do the business operating unit information.
Before that,
Ledger.
Information means ledger only. That will give the name. What I'm expecting is classification.
Yeah, classification. That is what.
Give the name. We have to give the classification. That is important. That's how system will understand that is operating unit. Then we'll give the operating unit info, the accounting information, where you will be mapping that operating unit is going to be under which primary ledger and which legal entity in EBS. That's what we do. Here, this and all we'll do in the 2 steps. And one more point is here, no need to give any classification. So in EBS, if you want to create the BZ, or if you want to create OU, or if you want to create inventory organization, if not these, any organization, other organization, like it could be HR organization or project related organizations or any organizations, all you can create from single window, right? The single window will make the difference only with the classification. But in the Fusion, we are not going to work in that way. Whatever you create, for that they given the separate form. If you want to create the business unit, go to business unit page. Whatever the test you enter, system directly will understand that is a classification as business unit only. You don't need to specify somewhere this is a business unit, somewhere this is so and so, and the classification you don't need to give direct definition. That's how they're given. Okay. And here, after creating the operating unit by giving the classification, EBS will provide that accounting information. So we'll associate that operating unit with particular primary ledger and legal entity, right? We assign primary ledger and legal entity to operating unit in EBS. But here, at the time of business unit creation, we don't do it. That we do as a separate step. This is a step. Okay. Within this only we have business functions concept also, which you have to understand. We'll see that. So whatever we do in EBS in 1 step, okay, in the same window, that will do is the 2 steps here. Separate functions they provided to create the business units, inventory organization, or any other organization. Even they provided separate pages for item master and actual inventories. Physical and virtual inventories also separate pages they provided, separate functions they provided. That's how we create here. We'll see all those. So for now, we'll go and create the business unit. Fine. So search for the task called as business unit. So task name you can see as a manage business unit. So this is a task, or else you can search with the same exact task. Instead of finding many tasks, task list within the search results. Okay, manage business unit. This is a task. The same business unit definition is available from finance and procurement. Let's proceed with the procurement path of task. Just click on manage business unit. It's a very simple definition. Just click on go to task icon. Click on go to task icon. Manage business unit. Click on go to task icon. So these are the business units which are already created as a part of this instance. We know in the fresh instance, nothing we can find as a sample definitions, right? So many business units we have here. Fine, ignore them. We'll create our own. So here is the create function. Just click on create. So this is a business unit creation page. So very simple definition. Give name. ERP3 US business unit. So business unit means it could be logical segregation or physical location of the business. Depending on that, the logical segregation of business operations or your physical location or branch or unit, whatever you call. If you have a manager who will be heading that entire unit of business, you can select that manager here. The employees which you create in the system, those you can select here as a from LOB you can find it. Okay, you can find from LO, all the employees. We are also going to create the employee, those employees you can find from here. But anyway, manager selection is not mandatory. Nowhere it will impact for the business transactions. Okay, just for information purpose, manager information purpose. Now or later, any point of time, you can just select the manager, no issues. Okay, it's not mandatory. And location. So you should select location as a mandatory. Field is optional. You should select location as a mandatory. If you don't select location as a mandatory, finance side, there are many transactions they cannot perform. So being a SAM consultant, you may create business units or finance people may create business units, but ideally you should select location. Location need to be specified. By seeing the field, if it is optional, if you ignore the location, there are the cases where certain transactions you cannot perform. One thing I can say, being an employee, if you go on to create expense report and if you submit, it cannot be processed for the business unit for which business unit location is not available. Okay, business unit is not available, sorry, location is not available at business unit level, that process doesn't work. You cannot convert expense reports into invoices. The same way, finance side, there is a lot of dependency for this location. So that is the reason the process should sync and work, since the business unit is a common entity which is used in many applications. And again, as from other applications also, it got the system will look for location as a part of the respective application process flow. That is the reason we have to treat location as a mandate and we have to enter. Fine. Anyway, we created location. It could be your virtual location. It could be your business unit creation, maybe the virtual segregation or physical. If it is a virtual, at least define and assign dummy location. If it is a physical, yes, address exact location in which location you are operating your business. But remember, location specification you have to take as a mandatory, otherwise it will create some issues when we are performing the transactions in the different areas of applications. Fine, done. Select location, what are the location you created. So search for our location. The name we given as ERP3 US, yes, BU location, right? You didn't write as a business unit. What is the name we given?
ERP3 with one E.
Singly, Lakshman, you.
Oh, maybe I typo. Oh, fine. Yeah, I'm really sorry. Okay, I just missed out one E to enter. No issues. Fine. Done. Yeah, you can help me if I do some mistakes. See, now I'm searching, so you may just give me the hint as I forgot to how I entered and all. Fine. Anyway, thanks for that. So location you have to select. Think this is a mandatory and select it. Here system is addressing like it's not mandatory. This is mandatory, this is mandatory, but these two fields are not mandatory. Yes, the system says this is not mandatory, 100% true, it won't impact anywhere. But locations, this attribute definitely will have impact in the different processes. So by understanding that, you have to provide the location. Okay, so location creation time, we have seen location set. Which value system taken?
Common set.
Sorry?
Common set. Common set.
Select
Common
same set. Here also. Select same here also. As a part of purchasing setups, maybe within 2 to 3 sessions, we'll talk about it. Even if we discuss here, it will become big confusion. But once again, I'll come back to this same page. What we are giving, what we given, why we given, those points we'll be discussing. But as of now, you just take the same common set only. Such the code is common, but this description is common set. Search for common. So common, the common set only. This is a name which got displayed when you created location, but the reference data set code is common. Okay. Within purchasing, we'll discuss. We will be creating our own. We'll be testing also. We'll be understanding detail level. Just only my request is please wait for some time so that we can understand. For now, remember what we are selecting. In case of location, anyway, system selected. Even system is selecting, we have to understand. But here we have to select which default set we have to select. What is the reason? We'll understand. Okay. For now, just select common. We'll understand very soon about it. Done. So that's all. Give name, select location, select default set. For now we are selecting common, but what exactly we have to select, common or something else, we will be understanding. We'll be testing so that will give you the complete understanding across all the applications. What is the logic of this set by Oracle given? We don't have this in EBS case. It's a new in Fusion. The purpose, what purpose and all we'll understand. Okay. So that's all. Any questions here, please? Okay, if you notice in EBS, we'll give the name, we'll give the classification. Then only system will understand that is a business operating unit or a business group or HR organization or some project owning organization or it is inventory organization. Okay, system will understand only based on the classification. Here, no, it's just because we are in this page only you can create business unit. That's how system will understand. Okay, done. Then say save and close. Once you save it, you cannot change this set name. Okay, one time only it's up. Once you perform, you cannot override it. The rest you can change. Name you can change, location you can change. If you provide manager, you can override. But this set is one time setup. But we'll understand more about it, then we'll talk on that again. So for now, just provide these details.
Purpose of manager, Lakshman.
Sorry, just for information purpose only. With that, you are not going to handle anything.
Okay.
Just for information. That's all. Mute, I am getting noise. Yep. Please keep on mute. I'm just placing on mute. Please don't unmute. Please. Fine. We created business unit. Now, my question is, in EBS, say you have operating unit, OU. OU1, OU2. Let me ask you one question here. I created OU1 and OU2. The OU1 will involve in only purchasing related transaction process and it involves, okay, only in the purchasing. Let me take in that way. OU2 will involve in the business process called as purchasing, or else let me take purchasing. Say it's a requisition also. Purchasing under requisition purchasing process. It involves in purchasing. First, let me write requisition process, purchasing process, receiving process, order related process, means order management process. So we know how to create operating units. So as per business requirement, as per business solution, so OU1 only will involve in the purchasing and requisition process and purchasing process, and OU2 will involve, just for example I am taking to understand the point. OU2 will involve in the process called requisition, purchasing, receiving, and order, means order management. OU1 is not going to have any order management transaction. Can you set this rule in the application in EBS? If yes, how? That means I want to set a rule with OU1 OM should not be implemented. System should not allow to implement order management and receiving process.
No,
And
not possible.
1 and 2, system should not allow, based on the specification what I given, it should not allow any other modules implementation. OU1 for only those two processes, requisition purchasing, OU2 only for requisition purchasing, order management, only this process. Okay, it should not allow anyone to implement other areas for this OU1 and OU2. Is it possible? If yes, how?
No, it's not possible.
Okay, any other answers?
It's not possible, yes.
They're not possible. So there is no control. You will create OU will be available across any application configuration, right? I'll go and create the operating net. I want to set up purchasing setups. In the LOV, wherever you see operating net field, it would be available. It would be available. Okay. So you may set some restrictions based on the assignment, but you have to set the profile option. You have to assign the profile option. Once you assign, accordingly that would be provision to particular responsibility. But I'm not talking about the profile option assigning, setting that. By default, I want to set a control on specific operating net. This operating net should be available only so and so application configurations only. I want to set it up. If I don't give the specifications, if I go and create OU 1 and 2, these two should not be available for any application configuration. If I want to implement purchasing for OU1, the OU1 should not be available for purchasing. Since I am not selecting anything, this OU1 we are creating to implement which modules. So this option you don't see in EBS, but in the Fusion that is available. Whatever the business unit you have, that business unit you are going to implement for which applications that you can select with a business unit business functions. Business functions means requisitioning is one business function, purchasing one business function, receiving is one business function. Okay, all are different business functions. So for which modules, when you create the operating net has a scope of which modules implementation. Okay, those you can finalize accordingly. That operating unit would be available. For this OU1, I'll go and select only requisition and purchasing. If I'm trying to, if I want to implement order management at the time, this operating net won't be available. In case of Fusion, we are calling as BU, right? Let's take the same name. For one BU, if I go and specify only two business functions, requisition is one business function, purchasing is one business function. Purchasing, let me write. Purchasing. If I set these two business functions for this BU1, if I go to payables, in the payables BU1 won't be available. If I go to order management, this BU1 won't be available. If I go to requisition configuration, this BU1 would be available. If I go to purchasing configuration, this BU1 would be available. That's how we can set a control. That's how you can set a control that we call as business functions. After creating the business unit, okay, for that business unit is going to be involved in which business functions for that client, those all you have to specify so that that BU would be available only in the enabled business functions only, not everywhere. Okay, we'll see after going through that setup. If you have any questions, we'll discuss. First, we'll see that. Okay, if you have any questions, let me complete the task. If you have any questions, we'll discuss. Okay, there itself will be mapping. Normally in EBS, when you create an operating net, we'll give the name and the classification, will provide the information, right? We created business unit, but we didn't map primary ledger and legal entities to business unit. That mapping also will do here only. We'll be specifying the BU will be involved in which business function related process, as well as we assign our primary ledger and legal entities to the business unit with this task only. Okay. Task name also same. Assign business unit business functions. I think you could see as not functions, function only. Task name they given like that. We'll go and see that. We'll complete this task, then we'll discuss if you have any questions. Yep. Next, to manage business units, you have a task. Assign business unit business function. It's not just function, functions reality, but they're given the name as just function, no issues. Assign business unit business function. Just click on go to task. You cannot perform this task from the outside of the project because scope selection is required. If you are going to assign business functions for a business unit, which business unit you have to select? That is the reason you have to do from the project. If you do directly from the search window never asks us to select the scope. So that is the reason this task you cannot perform from outside of the project. Business unit, if you want to create, you can create from the outside of the project, directly search page. But assign business unit business function, you have to perform from the project only. We'll go and see that. Click on go to task icon, which is arrow icon. So it is asking us to select business unit. For which business unit we want to assign the business functions, we have to select it. Select this value, say apply and go to task. We have to select our business unit first. Search for our business unit. Okay, ERP3 US business unit. That's how we given the name. Search. When you search, you have to select this business unit. When you are selecting, don't click on the name. If you click on the name, it will open the business unit what we created. Okay, don't click on this hyperlink. You just, apart from the name, from anywhere you can click, the record will get selected. If you click on the name, it will open the business unit. How you created it will take you business unit creation page. Okay, don't click on this. That is not the purpose we are here. Just select this record by clicking other than this name space. Okay, click. Then say save and close. Now system will select our business unit to assign the business functions. So this is our business unit. So these are the seeded functions which are available. Business unit functions. All our business functions. Billing and revenue management, which is related to receivables, collection management, advanced collection application, customer contract management, and customer payments is all related to finance. Expense management, incentive compensation, material management, which is related to inventory, payables invoicing, payables payments. So here is our procurement. Okay, if you are going to implement procurement contracts, which is a part of procurement application, one of the application, and project accounting, PPM, if you are going to implement this, you have to enable receiving to receive the material, receiving functionality. If you want to implement for any business unit, we have to enable this requisition business function. So this is all the business functions we have. So you are going to implement which business functions, which business processes, you accordingly have to enable the business functions for this business unit. Okay, so you can select specific, or else since just we are testing, you can enable all, there won't be an issue. But you have to understand the point as whatever you enable, accordingly you will be able to do the setups. Otherwise the area won't be available for configuration. This business unit won't be available. For example, I'll enable everything. Procurement I don't enable procurement, so I cannot do the procurement setups for this BU. If you go to, for example, procurement means, as we know in EBS, financial options. Let me take the same naming convention. Here the names are changed, we will discuss anyway. So if you want to implement the purchasing application, you have to set the financial options, which is a common setup for purchasing and payables also. If I go to financial options, we don't find our business unit. If I go to purchasing options, we don't see our business unit. The reason is, for procurement, the business unit is not enabled. Other business units you may see which are enabled, but the current business unit you cannot see. That is the reason for which areas you are going to implement, for which business functions you are going to implement the solution for this business unit, you have to enable. Since we are testing, you can just include all, so that wherever you go, the business unit would be available to configure. Just enable all or else you may go with what you require. And whatever you don't see here as some functions which are involved in the processes, by default on those areas the business unit is available, will be available. Only for this they given the control. If you identify something that is not included as a business function, so for those you would be available whatever the list of business functions they given here, for these only the business unit control is applicable. Just enable all, there won't be an issue. We'll be able to access everywhere this business unit. So in EBS, when you create the business unit, operating unit creation time only, we go to the tab called as others. There we can find accounting information. We'll select our primary ledger and legal entity at the operating creation only. But here we created a business unit as a separate setup. Here we are going to specify this. Assign this primary ledger to this business unit. Assign legal entity also to this primary business unit. We only created our own primary ledger and legal entity. We assigned only one legal entity to primary ledger, right? So that you can see. This is our primary ledger. Select for this primary ledger, this legal entity is associated. It will get defaulted. It will get defaulted. So this is how you have to assign the primary ledger to your business unit in Fusion. When you talk about EBS, when you create the operating unit, so with the additional accounting information you assign, but here as a separate task with the task called as assign business unit business functions, we assign business unit business functions. Along with that, we are assigning primary ledger also to business unit. That's it. If you assign, okay, if you assign this business unit to any purchasing responsibility, that is enough. Again, you don't need to assign primary ledger. Okay, primary ledger and all you don't need to map. You don't need to map. You don't need to set profile options how we do in EBS. If you associate this business unit to purchasing or order management, so since the primary ledger is already connected to this business unit, that's how the system will have access to primary ledger also. Okay, so this is how we have to give the specification and say save and close. Any questions here, please?
Lakshman, if customer is implementing procure to pay cycle, what functions we need to enable?
Okay.
That is the first question. The second question is?
No. First, let's talk about it. Yeah. So the first point is there won't be any issue if you are going to enable all, because the people who will be doing the implementation, okay, the consultants only will be doing. Somebody by mistake, they don't go and implement some additional module. Okay, that kind of knowledge everybody will be having, so there won't be any issue. Just if you want to set a control, so you have to set this, otherwise by default you can enable. Anyway, you want to implement P2P only for that reason. If you want to just understand, so what you have to enable is, so here you have to enable customer payments. It's customer payment. I thought payables payments. So payables invoicing, one you have to enable, and payables payments you have to enable, and procurement you have to enable, receiving you have to enable, requisitioning you have to enable. You will be touching inventory also, right, in the P2P. So you have to enable material management. Done. These are more than enough exactly to implement the P2P cycle. Material management, payables invoicing, payables payments, and procurement, and receiving, and requisitioning. These are enough. Okay, fine. So these are the points. Any questions? Yeah, please go ahead with. I think you said some other question.
In this case, we have to create many business units if a business unit purpose to raise requisition only.
Enable only requisition.
My question: you will create many business units.
Yeah, you should create. It's a BU specific setup. This is. You may have 100 business units. You have to do this.
Yeah.
So can we
Another
have a case wherein one business unit is only for acquisition? I mean, this is carry on the question which was being asked, but the payables being done by another business unit for this business unit which is only for acquisitioning.
Possible in centralized procurement. If you are going to implement centralized procurement, there it is possible.
How do we enable that?
Sorry.
How do we enable that centralized procurement? Like, how do we say that this business unit is the central
Setup.
procurement one for?
I'll show you those setup. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Again, this point will come when you are creating the supplier sites also. In the supplier site level also, we have to give the specification. We'll see supplier definition time also. I'll explain. Later, I'll show you that setup where you have to create the relation to make those as a centralized procurement process enabled BUs, where one BU will raise the requisition, another BU will make the payment, other BU will be acting as a procurement BU. This is all you can specify. We'll see that.
Lakshman, my second question is like, I bought only.
Because I could see your name as a caller 4.
Kulkarni, sorry.
Your name, please.
Kulkarni Lakshman.
Kulkarni. Okay, fine. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So I bought only procurement offering, and when I enable the business unit functions, do I see all these options to enable business unit functions?
You may take license only for finance. You can see SCM. You may take license for only.
No, so sorry. I bought only procurement offering.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You may take license for only one. You can see all, but even if you enable, you cannot. Even if you implement, no use. Oracle won't support. Will be available by default. Fine. Any other questions?
In this case, so based on the business unit function only, we are controlling what are the action we are going to perform. So that's the reason.
Action, not a transaction, not action. Maybe your meaning action means configuration, setup, implementation.
Right. Yeah, some activity or something like only procurement activity related function, we can perform that business unit.
Yeah, this is not related to any transaction part. This will control only setup. If setups are done, then only we can perform the transaction. We know that. So only related to configuration. That's it.
Configuration. So that business unit, what kind of only purchasing only NMA? I mean, we can do it or ordering only enabled through business function only.
Business unit is involving in which business process. Accordingly, how to enable these business functions. It's very simple.
Okay, so in this case, multiple business unit we can create. We can associate to the particular way. Okay. So suppose different activity we have to. So before configuration, like only purchasing or only order management. So we have to do different.
That's all. For each business unit, you can specify the business function. Accordingly, you will be able to do the setups. Not beyond that.
Yes. So we have seen one example for so we cannot control all the configuration in the OU level. So we should through the business unit level only we can possible.
Yes. The EBS we don't do this kind of configuration. We don't have setup. But in Fusion we have. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, fine, done. Any other questions here, please?
Yes.
Dinesh, go ahead.
If we have 2 operating units, can we assign the same primary ledger to 2 operating units?
100 operating units also we can assign. The same EBS logic only.
Oh, okay.
It's not new, right? It's not new. Assigning operating unit to business unit is not new. In EBS you can assign to one, or in Fusion you can do it. So you're running the business in India, you have 100 branches. Each branch you may create as one business unit. So India means, so ideally one primary ledger would be enough. Until unless you have some other different vertical of businesses, different chart of accounts. Otherwise, one primary ledger would be enough. So you can associate. Possible. Same like EBS.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep. Any other questions here, please?
Regarding primary ledger and default legal entity. We have a relation between primary ledger and legal entity, right?
Yes.
So here in business unit, is it linked to a legal entity or to a primary ledger? Because I
Both,
think
both.
it's enough to give a legal entity.
Both we are mapping. Both will have a relation. Both these two will be get connected with the business unit. In that particular business unit, when you are recording the business transaction, system will use the entity called as primary ledger information, and each transaction, whatever the within this business unit, whatever the transaction you create, this legal entity system will use for identification purpose for reporting aspects.
I mean, it's obvious. I mean, it's obvious to use legal entity because legal entity is assigned to one primary ledger. It cannot be shared.
Yes, correct. Now we are not assigning to something else. We are assigning to business unit, not other primary ledger, right?
Yes.
What is your question?
My question: why we give two information? We give a legal entity and primary ledger. I mean, if we give legal entity,
I'll tell you. No. 1 second. 1 second. You know, right? When you record the transaction, system will automatically identifies the legal entity, because every business transaction which you record in the business unit level or EBS operating unit level need to be we have to do the tax reporting, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to record the transaction with the ERP3 US business unit. If system is not going to identify the legal entity, how you will be doing the reporting. Simple, very simple. Business unit branch. This branch you are running under which registration? This legal entity. That is what we have to understand.
Yeah.
To capture the date, chart of accounts information, currency specification. I'll go and create the purchase order. Okay, I'll go and create the purchase order. You are creating the purchase order. You are running the company, and this transaction you are doing by following which registration? Ultimately, you will be doing the reporting to government with which entity registration, that you have to address in each and every transaction. This is not new in the fusion. Same EBS only. EBS it's required in every business.
Also, it's called default legal and default. Why it's default?
Default. One system will take as default when you are recording the transaction. You can override the legal entity if you have multiple legal entities. There are some business scenarios. Okay. Now, ideally, like we just we'll have a scenarios. We'll have a different business scenarios. In those business scenarios, some companies will use for one BU multiple balance and segment values, and they'll be keep changing the balance and segment value. Each balance and segment value may be associated with a different legal entity. In those scenarios, the legal entity will be overriding at transaction creation time. But here ideally one need to be defaulted, but in our scenario we have only one, so default or constant is same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, simple. You want to understand here more information, you can go with the help option here. Enable help, and just here a help icon will be enabled. You can click on that. Yeah. Very specific points if you want to understand, if you want to explore, you can ask me the questions, no issues, but just there is another way where you can explore. It's very specific points if you want to know. Okay, that is the meaning. Every transaction need to be identified by legal entity also when you're recording the business unit. So that is for our internal purpose, but government reporting point of view, everything need to be so reported. That has to be identified by specific registration. That is nothing but legal entity. Done. So you can say save or save and close. Our business unit is ready now. We created business unit, we associated business functions, means we assigned our primary ledger and a legal entity to our business unit. Okay, now we'll go and create the legislative data group. I think it's 9:30. Okay, maybe we'll just We'll see this task because by creating only one, nothing, or else just maybe it won't take more than 10 minutes. We'll complete this task at least here. Okay, we'll go and create the legislative data group. Search for legislative data group. Search for legislative data groups. Okay. And one more point here, I just forgot here. See, in our project, we have only selected offerings are finance and its procurement, right? We selected only two, but legislative data group is related to HCM, but still we are able to see. The reason what Oracle is doing is, when we are working on finance or procurement, what are the dependency setups need to be performed, those also they are providing as a part of every offering wherever the offering got dependency. Otherwise, the legislative data group tasks should not be part of our project. Finance and procurement only, but the legislative data group task is related to HCM, human capital management. Still that is available, but because if you are going to implement financials, you need employee user. If you are going to implement procurement also, you need employee user. So that is the reason they are providing as a part of these offerings also. Okay, legislative data group. Search for legislative data group. Okay. So here is the task. Manage legislative data group. It's a very simple definition. It's all about to define specific country payroll. Payroll means not complete payroll definition, just identification. Okay. Legislative data groups are specific to country. Just click on go to task icon. Okay, fine. Manage legislative data groups. So create new. Sorry, I think I selected wrong task. I think I clicked on this. This is the one. Directly it should open. Why it is taking routing to? It's a legal entity. So manage legislative data, right? 1 second. Something wrong path it is taking. When I select legislative data group, it has to take to legislative data group. Somehow it is.
You need to select legal entity, Lakshman.
Sorry?
You need to select the legal entity for legislative.
No, not required. Okay, that is not required. We'll do directly from here. It should not display like that. Let's do from search page. This task you can do from any place. Scope selection is not required. The next step you have to map. Not required now. Okay, search from here, same. Legislative data group. Okay, manage legislative data groups. Click on the task. So this is the legislative data group definition page. Click on create. Keep on mute, please. Name.
Hello?
Yeah, please. Any question? I think nobody is speaking. Okay, provide the name. ERP tree legislative data group. Sorry. So country. For which country we are creating this legislative data group, which will address the country payrolls that you can select.
Lakshman, from what navigation did you use just now? From the search
page, direct search.
In the navigator bar, search.
Yes, You have to click on the user, you have to go to setup and maintenance, you have to click on the task list, right? There you can see the task called as search. From there you have to search.
Got it.
I'll show you once again, no issues. First we'll complete from where we navigated. I'll take you through. Okay, so select country, and based on country, system is defaulting the currency. The cost allocation structure definition optional, that HCM people will take care of it, not required for us. Say submit. Legislative data group is ready. Submit. Click on that. So this is the navigation I taken. I just same, just many times we use it the same. I have to go to setup and maintenance. We'll be landing in the current page what you see. Go to task list, click on search. From here we search. Fine, done. We created legislative data group. Already our legal entity is ready, right? So now we have to assign legislative data group to legal entity. We'll go and see that. For that we have a
Question,
separate. Yeah, please.
Is it possible to have a business unit under a ledger and another business unit under a different ledger in the same implementation?
No. What is your question?
My question to define this business unit, is it possible to have a structure, enterprise structure, with many primary ledger?
Oh, at a time you can create. That is from HCM side they given on task. HCM multiple you can create. That's more related to HCM based definition. If you want to see that, I'll just show you like after completing this definition, because this is what normally we do. Okay, that is HCM task. From HCM side they given on task where you can create all in one go. You have to give the names and you have to give that reference data sets, because those are not known for us. Once you get to know all those, then if you go and create, that makes sense. I'll show you that. I'll show you that if you want to see, but not now. First we'll do all this through manual process. Okay, then I'll take you through, then you can understand that. Fine. But basically this is how we do. This is how we do the setups. But that is another way of doing. Okay, for that you should aware of the sets, BU level, whatever the set common you have seen, location level, whatever set you have seen. If you don't get the meaning of what purpose those, when you are defining, you don't understand anything. Whether you have to give 1 or 2 or 3, you don't understand. Okay, let's follow this. So how we do, and for additional information, I'll take you through that also. I'll show you anyway. Fine. So the next task is we have to assign legislative data group to legal entity. Okay, we have to assign legislative data group to legal entity. We'll go and do it. For the task name is legal entity HCM information. Okay, the legal entity we are going to assign to legislative data group. Legislative data group related to HCM information. That is the reason task name is legal entity HCM information. I'm not writing the full task name, just you can search, you can find the task. Manage legal entity HCM information. Legal entity we are going to associate with HCM information, but nothing but legislative data group. Okay, anyway, what we want to do is assign legislative data group to legal entity. To perform it, this is the task name. Manage legal entity HCM information. Just click on this task. Fine. So here we don't need to create anything, just simple. We have to find our legal entity. So whatever the legal entity we created, the legal entity level, we enable those 2 check boxes, payroll statutory unit and legal employer. Because of that, the definition will sync with HCM information. You can find here. Search for our legal entity. So legal employer is set to yes, we enable. Payroll statutory unit is set to yes, right? So just click on the legal entity name. You have to click on edit. Say update. Action reason why we are changing. No, I'm not updating anything. Go to tab called as payroll strategy unit. Here we have to select our legislative data group. That means legislative data group will be assigned to this legal entity. If you don't complete this setup by using this legal entity, you cannot create a employee user. Okay, so that is the point. Just select our LDG, legislative data group. Then say submit. That's it. Just we are finding the legal entity and we are going with edit option. Under payroll strategy unit, we are selecting what are the legislative data group we created. That's all. Nothing else we are doing. But reality, this is not done by us. HCM people will do. In your case, and you are implementing, if your HCM is not going to be implemented, this is how we have to do. Apart from that, we no need to understand anything. So we are not going to work on this relevant process. Since our employee user definition got dependency, we are creating it. That's all. We're done. Okay. So we completed the prerequisites to create the employee user. In the tomorrow session, we'll see employee user creation, roles assignment, access, running, and we'll continue the further configuration also. Any questions on today's session, please?
Lakshman, that means you created one employee, right?
We didn't create any employee, right?
Okay. So
when
employee,
you are referring, in today's session, you are referring?
Yeah, just now you finished the creative legislative data group in that.
Employee name.
Okay, that is next step. Okay.
Next step, we created legislative data group and we assign legislative data group to legal entity. Why we created the? When you create employee user, we have to give the legal entity, right? When you give the legal entity, system will verify legislative data group is associated with that legal entity or not. If legal entity is associated with the legislative data group, that legal entity only employee user definition will accept. That is the reason we did it. That's all. Okay, we not yet created an employee user. Okay, we'll create next step. In tomorrow session, we'll do that. Any questions, please?
Lakshman, like